Hello, everyone. Love and blessings. Welcome to another episode of Dragonfly Heart Medicine Radio. Your host, Kristen, Reiki Master Teacher and Ayahuasca Plant Medicine Preparation and Integration Coach, here with yet another episode. And I am looking forward to today because the guest for today was also a part of my summit, which I did almost a year ago, which is kind of hard to believe. And it was really great to connect with her via Facebook and just learn a little bit about her and what she offers. And I'm excited for our conversation today, which is going to be around can't even say it, authenticity and honoring our emotions and where we're at. So it's going to be a lot of juicy stuff that we're going to uncover and unpack. So I'm going to let her introduce herself real quick. So just tell us a little bit about yourself and why you said yes to being on the podcast.
Yeah, thank you for that introduction. So I thought that was really nice to tell people that we actually met a year ago, also through Facebook and also for another offer that you did. So I just remembered that it was so easy to talk with you, and it just felt like we could go on forever. That's why I felt really intrigued when I saw that you were looking for podcast guests, because I was like, I remember the talking went so nicely. I would absolutely love to be a guest. So I'm very happy to be here today. Yeah, my name is Jennifer Nadia. I am coaching people around the subjects of love, relationship, and sexuality. And I also work as an intuitive Soma Coach, which sounds like maybe a really fancy title. It's basically intuitively working with the body, like as in energy work, but also using scientific background to release trauma and stuck things and blockages. And I'm also an embodiment practitioner, which is also another fancy word, where I'm just like, I do embodiment workshops with people. Like, can you move from your emotions? Can you move from archetypes? Can you move from different sounds in nature that you hear? Like, how would your body move if you represent the wind and things like that? So yes, I really very much like all of those different areas where I'm involved in, which gives me like this beautiful space where I can work one-on-one with people, but also to work in groups and go to festivals or online and offer my work.
Yeah, it's a lot of really cool and beautiful offerings. And I kind of see the theme of the body, right? Sexuality, embodiment, all of those things kind of coming back into the body. Also, you mentioned, emotions and trauma and blockages and all of those things. And so I think it's great that you are using your gifts and your talents to help people move through that, because I think it's really hard to move through everything on your own. And it's really nice to have somebody kind of walk you through the process and to help hold space for you. So, out of all of your hats that you wear and the offerings that you give, is there one that's kind of like your favorite or one that lights you up a little bit more than the others?
I think it's not one of the offers, but it's probably the essence of out of all of that, which is also what I see when I do creative things or work creatively with people. It's like bringing people within so they realize they can find their inner wisdom and the clarity, their wisdom and the power. They can find it within themselves instead of trying to find it outside. So I would say that is in the essence of what I like to do, and that's really where I can feel my fire. And this can be different for different people, where that what that means. But it's basically bringing them to the body and like letting them listening within. Like it's all about going into the slowness, into the softness, and really tuning in. Like, can you get into a relationship with yourself, with your body, with your inside world, with the emotions, with everything that it entails? And I would say that's at the core of what I do. In everything that I do, that's at the core.
Which I think is really important because, and I've mentioned this a lot in different podcasts and various videos that I've done, but it feels like in the spiritual community, there is a lot of focusing on not being our bodies and being, our higher selves or being our spiritual selves. and we're not the mind, we're not the body. Yet at the same time, we are, at least here on earth. And I think a lot of times there's that focus on, and a lot of people start to neglect their body and they start to focus more on their spiritual body and they forget their earthly body. And so I think the work that you're doing is really important to kind of teach people that, like, no, our bodies are important. They do serve a purpose and it connects us to our emotions, which is like the key to unlocking a lot of things. And so, what are some things that you do to help people start that relationship with their body, especially if they've been really disconnected for a long time?
Yeah, first of all, I would really acknowledge what you just spoke about. I think that's super beautiful. So, how I see this exact thing is when people try and find the wisdom and the answer in the outside, it can also, you can imagine it like trying to find it up here somewhere, which is not wrong by itself. Like, we both know that it's not wrong. But what I'm trying to do is like to bring this all down, to like let it sink down, drop down, and then when it's down in the earth, in the body, it can rise even higher than you could have before. But this is kind of the image that I saw. Yeah, the image that I saw is what I would like people to do. First, I think it's as simple as just first of all telling people that this is something that is possible, like telling them, do you listen to yourself? Do you really truly hear the inside voice? That's a start, like just allowing people to see that this is a possibility. But then I guide them often in meditation. So I invite them to close the eyes. I use the breath to slow the whole nervous system down, like to go into the parasympathetic nervous system, which is the one that we use when we sleep and when we slow down, when we meditate. So we start accessing deeper parts within ourselves, like our subconsciousness. And from that space, I start asking questions. So I will not ask the mind. I try not to ask the mind, but rather ask, where in your body do you feel it? Where is this fear? Where is your anger lying? What does it want to tell us? So it's like listening to this soft, parts within ourselves. And like it's breath, slowing down, softness, and just believing in yourself, because everyone is able to do that. That's a really big thing that I believe in. Like, everyone can do that if they want to. And from there, I do see that as like the seed being planted. And from there, I see clients that I've worked with that suddenly tell me, Jenny, you opened a portal up for me. And now I start understanding so much more. And now when I do decisions, I'm not just going to ask the mind for the decisions. But Jenny, I tuned into my solar plexus. I tuned into my heart. I tuned into my womb, and I made my decision out of there. And I'm like, yes, this is such a beautiful thing, because I sometimes also believe that our soul, our high wisdom, why does it only need to speak through our mind? Why does my soul, for example, is very much connected to my heart? Or my womb, the womb is connected to nature, to the earth. So if I make decisions or listen to those parts, they sometimes give me insights which I otherwise would have never achieved if I solemnly used the mind.
Yes, I love how you mentioned kind of using multiple parts of ourselves to get different perspectives on different things. So not only thinking about it, but shifting into where is it in the body, which can be really hard for me when I'm in the middle of like a crisis, not like a legit crisis necessarily, but what feels like a crisis for the mind. And it's so easy for me to start asking all these questions like, well, why am I feeling like this way? What happened? And although that could be beneficial, it doesn't help me move through it until I drop into the body and stop asking the questions and just say, okay, well, what is this emotion? Where is it? What can I do to release it and move through it? Instead of getting stuck in the mind, and then I get like in these loops and it's really hard to move through the feelings until I acknowledge where they are in my body. And it's a lot easier said than done sometimes, because those heavier, denser emotions for me are really painful. And for example, I'm going through a lot of grief right now. In 2022 too, I lost both my father and my grandmother. And so I'm moving through a lot of grief. And sometimes I don't want to feel it. So I block it off, or I get stuck in the mind and I'm trying to be like, well, why am I feeling like this? It's been this many months. I shouldn't still be feeling this way, or, judging myself. And so I love how your practice is so simple yet so powerful of just literally slowing down, taking some deep breaths. And it's interesting because as soon as you mentioned deep breaths, I took a couple deep breaths and realized how even in this moment, like I'm not relaxed. I think I am, but after taking breaths, I'm like, oh, now I feel relaxed, right? And listening to the softness, because our body doesn't always speak loudly. A lot of times it's like really subtle, and we can start to train ourselves to listen to our bodies more. And therefore, we're having more than one perspective. We're not always living in our mind. We can ask our heart or our womb or whatever, what it may need. So, thank you for sharing your process and your breakthroughs with some of your clients. I love how they mentioned it was like a portal just opened up, and all of a sudden, things started to shift for them. So, in your experience, when the emotions of like anger and grief and shame come up, the ones that are harder maybe to feel and experience and move through, in your experience, what helps you and or your clients really move through those with grace and ease?
Yeah, I think this is super personal and very individual for each person. So first of all, in my one-on-one coaching with clients, because it's a topic that often comes up, because unfortunately we live in a society where we don't get taught how to live with our emotions um, in a healthy way. So it's something that comes up very often, and usually it's when they first like fully tap in with this emotion and first really start listening, the answer comes up, what this emotion desires, what it needs. So I had recently a client, for her it was really difficult to express her anger in a healthy way. She always got shamed around that by her parents, and even in school, like all throughout her life. And when we really tuned into that anger, the anger was like, I want to have a space. I want to have a space where I'm allowed to be. And eventually, while talking about it afterwards, we realized that she loves going for hikes, and she lives somewhere in a very remote place near the forest in the mountains. So, and then she remembered when she was a child, she used to love throwing stones in just somewhere into nature. And then we discovered this exercise where she could just go into nature and throw stones. and and then I invited her to also use the voice, because the voice is a really powerful tool that we have, and it helps to enhance the emotion, and it helps to really express it and let it out. So she started doing that in nature where no one could hear her. She threw stones. So it's like this old inner child memory was also present, and as an adult doing something like that, and it really helped her. And for me personally, I use music. I've created playlists where there is certain songs that just immediately bring me into this emotion. And then I just move through it, as in I move my body while I experience the emotion. And I like to do this, I call it emotional roller coaster. I like to do this exercise where you go and move through the emotions. It can take 1 minute, 2 minutes, but you move from, let's say you start with anger, and then you move from anger to grief, from grief to joy, and from joy to pleasure. And it works. You just say that this is the way you move, and then you let the emotions come, and it works. We are capable to be in one emotion for only 30 seconds, a minute, 1.5 minutes, and move to the next one. And this helps to allow all of them. Also, because sometimes I don't even realize that I'm actually really, really sad. Just realize something is off. Like, I'm not acting my usual self. I'm really insecure. I get angry with everyone around me. And then I might have an unprocessed emotion. So if I do this exercise, this emotional roller coaster, for example, these emotions get to express themselves. I get to express them. And it feels like a cleansing. Like afterwards, I usually often sit there afterwards and I feel like absolutely blissed out. Like I feel so clean. I feel so empty. My body is just super happy and relaxed. And after that, I can move into doing other things. So it's this allowing them. So this is a way that works for me. It doesn't mean that it works for everyone, but I definitely like this idea of using a song, because then you're not getting lost in it. Because that can sometimes happen. We all know that we are in grief for an indefinite amount of time. And sometimes we cannot allow that, because we need to move on with our lives. We need to do our job. Maybe we have kids. We need to take care of them. We have responsibilities, and that can help to really like deeply move into grief, like full on allow the deepest grief you can feel for 5 minutes. And maybe that's enough. And maybe after that, you can say, okay, thank you, grief, for having been here. And now we'll continue my day. I will tune into you again tonight. And this has helped me a lot. Like, obviously, it doesn't always work. I am very emotional. It doesn't always work. Sometimes the emotion just takes me, and I just feel. But it definitely has made it easier for me when I do things like that.
Once again, thank you so much for sharing your process. And yeah, I have found that, well, let me start back at the beginning. So I love the idea of your client just going to the woods and like throwing rocks, like tapping into something she did as an inner child and doing it now. And yeah, I think that that's great, because yeah, I feel like I might do that. If I feel angry, because angry is usually an emotion that like I'm like, I don't know what to do with this. Like, I mean, scream into a pillow, but I like the idea of just like going in the woods and throwing rocks. So I might try that. And I also like using the voice too. So a lot of times, if I'm feeling something and I'm not really sure how to put it into words, I'll just open my mouth and make a sound that I feel like matches the emotion. And sometimes it's really beautiful, and sometimes it's like really primal and like, how in the world am I making this noise? And I'll just do that for a few minutes, like in meditation. And then it's like all of a sudden that lightness comes in, and it's like, oh, it feels so good to release that. I didn't have to judge it. I didn't have to ask it questions. I just let it be present. And I also love how you said, like, with the grief, like, you might allow yourself to really feel it for 5 minutes, thank it, and then, but don't, and not try to shove it away again, but say, and, I'll come back to you later. Like, I will come back and we will revisit, these feelings. Because, like you said, it's like they want a space to be seen and heard and validated, just like every part of us, including our emotions, right? And once again, in the spiritual community, there's this whole like, oh, well, there's high vibe emotions and there's low vibe emotions, or there's emotions you want to feel. And if you feel these emotions, then you're not as connected to God, or whatever, it may be, which I feel like is just not fully true. Like, there's some truths in it, but feeling our emotions is one of the best things that we can really do for ourselves, even if it's hard, like, because the more we repress things, the deeper the roots get and the harder it is to move through it later. So
Beautiful.
Yeah. Oh, emotions. Yeah. So like, for example, like last night I had this really intense dream with my mom. Like, she was in it and she was really mad at me. And I don't remember why initially she was mad at me, but we just kept arguing. And then some event happened, and like in the dream, like it was really stressful. I don't remember what it is, but apparently my mother and I almost died, and I didn't put myself in front of her to save her. So she was like, you don't really love me. And so I woke up this morning and I cried for like 2 or 3 minutes. And I was like, oh my goodness, this dream really got to me. But, it was very symbolic and metaphorical. Like, my mom doesn't love me anymore because I wouldn't sacrifice myself for her. Like, that just like was like this huge like metaphor for not just my mom, but people in general, how like, I want to do all these things for other people and sacrifice myself for other people. And I don't know, it was just like really big emotions. And, but by allowing myself to feel it, I was able to, kind of move on with my day and not stay so stuck in that. So thank you again for sharing your process. And I know another topic that's really near and dear to you, which, might seem random, but I think it piggybacks perfectly on emotions, is being authentic and like being authentically you and authentic expression, which, involves honoring our emotions and being ourselves and not being afraid to feel our emotions or to be vulnerable in front of other people, right?
Mm. Yes. Yeah, definitely. And for me, those two topics are very closely linked because I am an emotional person. I have always been this way. It just in my childhood, I grew up in a family and I went to a school that didn't really know how to handle such an emotional person. Additional to being very emotional, I'm also very sensitive. So, yeah, basically, that just sounds like chaos right there when you put that together. And so, for a long time, I kind of learned throughout my childhood to put that, to diminish my emotions, because I got taught that I cannot survive like that in the environment that I was in. And only in during my teenage years, where everything hits us that isn't that well yet, it really hit me. They came back with such a full-on force, and I didn't know how to handle it. So it took me, I would say, like at least 10 years to start getting in touch with that again, with this part of me, and really start working with it. And now I'm standing here where I'm like, well, I just want to be more and more authentic every day. Like I really want to show up everywhere where I am as the person I am. And that entails me and my emotion. That means that I can feel like this 1 second and I can feel completely different 5 minutes later. But I know how to handle myself. I know what to do. And I don't need anyone else to find a solution for me or support me in that. So I just want to be accepted. And that's for me is a huge piece about being authentic. Like, am I showing up? Not always. Am I showing up mostly, like as often as I can, as the person I really am? Or am I hiding and putting on a mask? Which I don't want to do. And I don't want people around me having to put on masks. Again, we live in a society that is so used to people having to put on masks, where you work with colleagues and you have no idea that they're just going through the biggest heartbreak. Someone died in their family, something else has happened, just because they know how to put on a mask and pretend that everything is fine. Like, I don't want to live in this world. It actually makes me feel super unsafe when I'm around people that wear masks, because I can see through the mask. Like, I feel that something is not matching up, and I'm like, wait, something is off here. And then I might ask really random and weird questions that just intuitively come up. It's because I want to invite the people to take off their mask. Like, around me, you don't need to pretend to be anyone else. You can just be you. And that means everything. That means like being there with all of your emotions, but it also means showing your boundaries, like saying, hey, I'm really happy I'm here with you, but I actually don't want to talk right now. Okay, great. Then don't do it. Like, we should stop force ourselves um, to act in a way where society needs us or the environment needs us, or yeah, people around us. It's like old leftover childhood memories that or like, not memories, but what is it called? Like things that got installed in us and we need to act on them. I don't know the word right now, but it's
I'm drawing a blank too. I'm like,
doesn't matter. But it's like this, like, yeah, can you be even more authentic? And there the first step to going towards that is to actually feel, who are you underneath all of those masks? Who are you underneath everything, all the things that got installed into you that you believe that are your own, but maybe they're not. Like, who are you really at your core? And that means you need to learn how to listen to who you are when all of the things get taken away, everything that everyone told you all throughout. And it's an intense process. And that's why I think ideally I would invite people to get support in this process. Like, you obviously, everyone can do everything alone. I mean, I'm the best example, but it's tough. Like, looking back, I would have liked for me to get a guide a couple of years back that was supporting me and telling me, like, hey, it's completely normal the way you are, and I love you the way you are. Like, let's start working on you. Let's start taking this mask off and listening and feeling who you are. So yes, I think we shouldn't go through this alone. I think we should support each other because it's a big process. But I'm so looking forward to stepping into a world where people are themselves, showing up as themselves, being true, being honest, being just authentically them. I think my whole inside is craving for this world.
Mm. Yeah, absolutely. And by taking off our masks, we do give people around us permission to do the same. And I love, yeah, it's like you can tell when people aren't being authentic. And sometimes, like, it's really obvious, and sometimes it's not as obvious, but there is, you can just tell. And um, yeah, I used to be so concerned with what other people thought about me. And I would almost be like this chameleon where I would constantly change how I spoke, how I even carried myself, especially when I first started doing interviews for like teaching positions. I didn't answer what I would think, I answered what I thought they wanted, and I didn't get any jobs. And then when I finally was just like fed up and I went to an interview and I just was like, I'm just going to answer the questions how I want to. And I'm going to stop trying to figure out what they want me to say. And I got the job. So it's just like, and I used to try to be like other teachers as well. I'm a high school teacher by day, do all the Reiki stuff on the side, but I would try to be like other teachers. I would teach the content how they were teaching it. And my students, because teenagers especially can tell when you're being inauthentic, and they wouldn't listen to me, like literally. I would have to yell and scream to get their attention because they're like, they may have not known exactly what they were doing, but there was this part of them that was just like, I don't buy it. I don't buy what she's selling. Something's off. Like, I'm not going to listen to her. She changes every day. Every day she's different because she doesn't know what she's doing. And I'm not going to listen to that. But now that I teach the content how I want to, and I show up and I'm myself and I have my own guidelines and things, like the students are completely different. They're not as stressed out because they have clear boundaries and direction. I'm not changing, every day. And, they're a lot more respectful, and they are also more authentic because I am. And it's just a much better experience overall. So I just think, and those of us who are really empathetic are also really powerful. That means not only can we feel other people's emotions really easily, but they can feel ours. So when we step into the room and we are authentic and we are grounded and we are embodied in who we are, other people can feel it, and it gives them permission to take off those masks too. Like, and sometimes people don't just have one mask, they have multiple masks, and I have no idea what is going on with my camera. It has a mind of its own. It's no, I'm not even moving that much, and it's just like, but anyways, so yeah, I think I'm really passionate about authenticity as well. And I know authenticity is really important too, like in the coaching industry, because I feel like the coaching industry is starting to become really like oversaturated, but half the people are like little cookie cutter robots and they're all doing the same thing, you know? So how do you, stand out is by being like you, right? Like you're not trying to like hustle and grind out there to get a whole bunch of clients. You're just, you speak about things from your heart. And I mean, so how do you feel like you're able to stand out in the sea of coaches by being authentic?
Yeah, I think I'm really happy that we're speaking about that because I think it's something that I have observed too so far. And I get really confused. Like, I feel like sometimes some people, I don't want to judge all of the people that are coaches because there is amazing coaches out there, but some people I feel like they do a couple of weeks of training, and then they just put something out is exactly the same what they learned. So it's like thousands of people, like you said, they're doing the same steps, which is just confusing. Like you read through it and it just doesn't feel alive. So for me, I really try and tune into what feels alive for myself. Where is my joy? Where is my passion? And obviously, we get inspired every day by other people. And I think that's the beauty of it. Like inspiration is amazing. Getting inspired by others is great. But then how can you make it your own? How can you make it so that it feels like, this is me? Like maybe it's you get inspired by 3 people's offers and you combine that, put your own on top, mix it up, and then you make something uniquely new that is you, but you did get inspired by others. I think that is perfectly fine. And usually I try and also show where I got trained, like which people trained me. So people know, okay, this is where my inspiration is coming from. This is where my knowledge is coming from. But what I try and put out there is mine. It's where I feel my power, where I see myself behind it. So it's this like feeling, is it mine? But I also do a lot of the decisions with meditation. So I try and do all of the big decisions while sitting in meditation. And then it might change, it might be different. I might be tuning into my womb, my heart, my mind, my soul, my higher self, or whatever else what wants to come in, and I tune into that, like what feels alive. I work with a business deity, like as in imagining that my business exists as an energy outside of myself or within myself that I can communicate with. So a lot of the decisions go through there. Like I might get inspired and something feels really alive. I let it sink in and I rest with it. Like, do you go through the cycles with it? We're women. Like, do we let things go in cycles? It means when you get inspired, often don't just put it out there the next day, but really let it settle, really let it move through you. And then make it like in the meditation, where does it land? How does it feel more alive? How can I make it more mine? And then only then I put it out there. And even then, I think that sometimes I also get inspired by my clients. Like I might have an offer out there. I get clients coming in and they give me in a subtle way without giving me feedback. Maybe they just give me feedback through the way that they interact with that offer. And that I take into consideration again, and then I change. So I feel like it's also good to be in a constant flow of change because we constantly change. Like obviously don't change your offers every day. That's way too difficult. But how can you adjust it? Because how can it represent you in a year's time, in a month's time? How can you stand behind it again? So that it's like that this creative juice is continuously alive. I think yeah, that's a funny sentence, but I really like it.
Yeah, it's so important to recognize that we can get inspired by other people, but if we copy what they're doing exactly, first of all, it's not really fair to other people who came up with the offering, but it's not really fair to ourselves either. But that we can still take inspiration and find ways to make it our own. And I feel like, yeah, there's so many business coaching programs out there as well, and people are just copying, exactly what they do. And I did the same thing in the beginning of my business coaching program and was getting absolutely zero results. And then when I started to use the guidelines as more of like a blueprint, but not like kind of a loose blueprint, and then I would change and word things differently or whatnot, that's when things really started to shift. Because when you're a coach or you do Reiki, energy work, card readings, whatever, people are going to resonate with your energy and how you carry yourself first, then what you actually are saying and what you are actually offering. So when your energy is constantly shifting and it's not grounded and embodied and authentic, people aren't going to buy what you're selling because they don't resonate with you. But that there's, there's a lot of layers to that too, though, because sometimes people don't come to you because they don't like your energy, and that's okay too. I feel like there's enough clients for everyone that we don't have to like steal clients from each other, that we can actually network and refer people, to each other. But it just comes back to that authenticity piece that you keep speaking about. And I love how you keep sharing, bits and pieces of your process, that when you do have a big decision to make or a new offering to put out there or whatever, you just slow down and you sit in meditation and you tap into once again, those different perspectives. Maybe today I need to ask my mind what I need to do. Or maybe today I'm focusing on my womb. What does it need from me? How can it help me, make this decision? So yeah, I just love how open and honest and raw and authentic you are being, in this candid conversation. So I feel like I am getting a lot from just facilitating this with you.
Thank you for that.
You're welcome. Is there anything else you want to share before we start to wrap up?
Yeah, I think what I also think is really important when you are a healer, a therapist, a coach, in my opinion, you also got to do the work on yourself. Like if you stop doing that, if you just start resting and feeling like, okay, I've got my offers out there, I have a few clients, but you're not working further to expand yourself and to further work on everything that is coming up, because this is basically what happens in everyone that I know. If you start being self-employed, if you start having your own business, things are going to come up. Like you can no longer hide things that you might have suppressed. So if you stop working professionally with other people yourself, then you cannot expand further, or you might get lost. And you're also, in my opinion, not going to be able to be a really good healer or coach and show up for your clients. So for me, that this is a crucial part. Like I am currently getting coached by 2 people, and I'm further working on my body. Like I'm getting treatments. And I also think that I would like to do even more than that. It's just, I think it's super important. Where are you investing in yourself while you're putting your offers out there? Because I feel if you're not doing that, then you will get lost, and your offers will just not be as powerful, because like you said, the work on yourself is one of the most important things, I think, in my opinion. Your energy, your radiance, your power.
Yeah, it's an ongoing process. We're never complete fully. There's always more work to do. And that doesn't mean that we have to rush through the process and try to force healing, but it does mean, that we continue to stay aware. I feel like our business is a perfect mirror of what's going on. And it really does bring up all the stuff that you thought you had healed or you thought you had moved through, all the limiting beliefs. It brings up a lot of stuff. And I think it's really brave to be a true entrepreneur and to really, you know, treat your business like that it's energy, treating it like that entity that's separate from you yet within you, kind of, how everything is, it's within us and without us. And you know uh but yeah, just making sure that we're doing the work ourselves and not just telling other people to do the work and then thinking that we're okay. And I do think sometimes there's moments when we take breaks, because things get a little heavy, but it doesn't mean we just completely stop and, become stagnant. Like I follow a lot of business coaches on Instagram, and they're always setting new goals. Even when they get to this income level, they're like, no, I'm going to keep pushing myself. I'm going to see how much I really can make and how much I can grow my business. And they don't like settle. They don't, I feel like in the beginning, when we're on this spiritual journey of enlightenment and awakening, we imagine ourselves at this end point where all of a sudden we have all the answers. All of a sudden we are no longer triggered. All of a sudden everything is healed. And we're just like, oh, meditating on the mountain, and we never have to come, down from the mountain. And it's like, no, we get to that place and then we realize nothing has really changed, yet everything has changed, and we just continue living our lives. So
Yeah, I think that's amazing. I do think for some people it works, but they have a completely different environment and lifestyle. They get to live in nature on this mountain, but I'm living in a city. It's
me too.
completely different. Like yeah, I have a different task on this earth than a monk has somewhere in the Himalayas, and that is okay. So we cannot adapt their lifestyle to ours and just think it's going to work the same here in the city. No, it's going to be different. And yeah, here in the city we're more influenced by everything that happens around us, and the city is busy, so there is a lot happening.
A lot of energy, a lot of Wi-Fi, a lot of cars and traffic and all kinds of things.
But now we're going into a completely new topic. But
on that note, no, just kidding. Yeah, I feel like we could talk a lot longer, but it feels pretty complete on our topics that we wanted to discuss. So thank you so much for being here and sharing your heart and soul with us. Uh, and if anybody wants to get into contact with her, I'll put her information in the description. So if you want to reach out to learn more about her offerings, that can be an option for you. Thank you to those of you watching and listening. And I hope you got something out of this podcast. And I'll see you in the next one.
Thank you too for interviewing and having me here today. That was a pleasure. I love talking about those things.
Yes, I can tell. Yeah, you just really light up. And then it got me excited because at the beginning of the interview, as I told you, I was like more nervous than usual today for whatever reason. And but as soon as it started flowing and you were lit up, then I was lit up. So yeah, it's contagious. I feel like when we really speak about topics that light us up, like it just feels so good. It feeds the soul. It's really great to be able to connect with like-minded individuals.
Yes.
So, okay. Bye, everybody.
Bye-bye.